You did the thing again. Last week you had me down to a single number, the whole of mechanics folded into it, that one summed up price on a whole journey, the action, and then, right at the door, you tipped the floor out from under me. You said the reason energy never budges isn't that energy's some grand law standing on its own 2 feet, it's that the world doesn't care what hour you run it. A shrug. And out of a shrug falls the sturdiest law I own. I have not slept right since.
I did say it, word for word, and I meant every syllable of it. I've been looking forward to this one all week, because last week I only cracked that door open a finger's width and let a draft of it blow through the room. Tonight we walk all the way in, and you've come in wanting to fight it, which is the only way you ever arrive, and frankly, the only way that's ever any use to either of us.
I've come in wanting it explained, which with you amounts to the same thing as a fight. So say the time one to me again, slowly, because I want to catch precisely where the trick is hiding. I run some experiment today. A ball down a ramp, a pendulum let go from a height, whatever you like. I run the identical thing next Wednesday. Same ramp, same ball, same push, same everything, and I get the same result. That's the whole of what you mean by the world not caring what time it is.
That's the whole of it, and don't let the plainness of it fool you for a second. Nothing in the raw laws changes between today and Wednesday. The score you'd write down, motion energy minus place energy, jotted tick by tick, comes out reading the same whenever you choose to start the clock. The rules weren't different last century, and they won't be a jot different next. The world runs on the same recipe, regardless of what the calendar says.
And that sameness, that flat sameness across every hour, has got a name.
That sameness has a name, and it's a grand one for so plain a thing. A symmetry, that you can shove the whole business forward in time, an hour or a week or an age, and it never once notices you did. And here's last week's promise handed back to you. A symmetry never comes for free. It always, without fail, pays out something in return for being left alone.
Pays out that level line. The one from the landscape night, way back. Motion energy plus place energy, the sum that holds dead still clean across all the hills and valleys, never budging a single hair the whole way through. So let me get the shape of the swindle straight. That level line I marched out of the landscape episode, clutching, proud as anything, like a genuine law of nature had been pressed into my 2 hands.
Was never a law standing in its own right. Go on, say the rest of it. You've got it.
It was the change I got back, the change the world handed me across the counter for time not caring. The single sturdiest thing I thought I owned in the whole subject, and it turns out it was receipts. A stub from a transaction I didn't even know I'd made.
The change you got back, that's the whole of it. And here's what ought to keep you up the rest of the week, not merely tonight. It is a pattern, not a one-off. Time not caring pays you energy. But there are 2 more shrugs loose in the world, 2 more ways you can pick the whole experiment up bodily and shove it about, and have the score flatly refuse to notice. And each of those 2 pays out its own treasure as well.
2 more shrugs. And I can hear it coming. You're about to tell me I've already met both of the payouts.
You've met both this very season with your own eyes, shaken hands with each of them across a whole night's work, and walked back out the door thinking each was a proud law unto itself, self-made, beholden to nobody. Tonight you find out exactly who the pair of them have secretly been working for the whole time.
Now hold on just a moment. Before you go slaughtering my laws wholesale in the dark, let me plant a flag, because I can feel exactly where this is heading, and I do not care for it one bit. Energy, momentum, the going around, those 3 are the bedrock. Those are the treasures I finally learned to trust, that you handed me one hard-won night at a time. Surely they are the foundation of the whole place, and this symmetry business is a pretty pattern we notice sitting on top of them, not the reverse.
Plant it good and deep, Then, the conservation laws are the bedrock. Both boots planted square on it, full weight, because it is the precise flag I mean to walk out from under you before this night is through.
You always say that, right before you go and do it.
I do, but not by decree tonight, and not by any conjuring trick. I mean to do it by showing you the machine itself, gear by gear, turning in the light, until you knock yourself clean off that flag and hand me the ground it was standing on. So leave it planted where it is, and let's go and collect the 2 payouts you never knew you'd already been paid in full.
Fine. It's in the earth, and I'm standing on it with my arms folded. Which shrug do we go collecting first?
The plainest one in the whole world. Forget waiting on Wednesday. This time, don't lay a finger on the clock at all. Instead, take the whole experiment, the ramp, the ball, the table it's sitting on, the lot of it, and slide it. Pick the entire arrangement up and set it back down 10 steps to the left. Not a piece of it. The whole thing together, rigid, every part carried the same distance the same way, so that nothing inside it shifts 1 whisker relative to anything else beside it.
And then I run it.
And then you run it. What comes out the far end of it?
The same thing, obviously. If I move the entire setup over as one rigid block, ball, ramp, table, all of it together, then from the ball's own point of view precisely nothing has changed. Its neighbours are every one right where they were relative to it. Same ramp under it, same table beneath that, same air around it. Of course it does the identical thing 10 steps to the left that it'd have done right here. Why would it even know that it had been carried at all?
It couldn't know. It has no way to know, and that is the whole of the thing. The world looks the same here as it does 10 steps over. No spot in empty space is the special one. None is the true middle. None of it is stamped. The world really happens here and only borrows itself out everywhere else. Slide the lot of it sideways and the score reads back the same. A second symmetry, every bit as real as the first. The world's flat refusal to care where you run it.
Wait though, let me fight that one for a second because it doesn't sit right. Surely there are special places. The middle of the room, a corner. If I do my experiment jammed down in a corner instead of out in the open, that plainly isn't the same thing. The corner does something to it.
Ah, but look what you did there. You smuggled the room in. The corner is special because of the walls, the floor, the stuff crowded around it. Move the walls too then. Move the whole room, move every last thing that's doing any pushing or pulling, and the corner packs up and comes along with it. It's empty space, all on its own, that has no special spot. Bring the whole of the scenery, and space itself cannot tell that you moved.
So it's only ever special if I leave something behind to measure against. Move genuinely everything, scenery and all, and the specialness travels along with it, and nothing's changed. All right, I'll grant you that. And by last week's promise, that flat refusal owes me a payout.
It owes you one, and it always pays its debts. And you can very nearly name the payout yourself from the plain shape of the first one.
And I do love how you keep phrasing it. The world doesn't care where I run it. Not indifferent politely either, not looking a way out of manners. Indifferent like it's frankly a bit bored of me. I heave my whole laboratory 10 steps to the left, dragging and cursing the entire lot of it across the floor, and the universe just shrugs. Doesn't so much as look up from its paper. Same as it ever was, mate. Why on earth did you bother? The single grandest shrug there is, aimed square at all my labour. And out of that magnificent shrug I get handed what exactly?
Out of that shrug falls momentum. The which-way treasure, a plain number with an arrow welded onto it. How much motion there is and pointing which way. The one that keeps the books through every crash, every recoil, every gun kicking back hard into a shoulder. The grand total a closed-off system can never once spend, no matter how violently it flies apart inside itself. That one. The world not caring where you happen to stand is the conservation of momentum, wearing a plain, flat cap of a disguise the whole season long.
The center that coasts. That's the very image I carried out of that night, the firework climbing up and then bursting into a whole sky of sparks, fire and chaos flung everywhere at once, and one quiet point right in the dead middle of the blast that never got the message, gliding along its smooth arc as though absolutely nothing had happened around it.
That one calm point, in the middle of all the fire.
And you're telling me the deep reason that point coasts, the reason its grand total never shifts a hair through all that noise and flame, is that space simply hasn't got a favourite spot anywhere in it. That's the engine sitting underneath the centre that coasts.
That's the engine, right there beneath the coasting. Space having no special place, no here that outranks a there anywhere in it, is the very thing that keeps that calm point gliding along untroubled through the middle of the blast. Move the whole firework 10 steps to the left before you ever light the fuse, and it climbs the same, and bursts the same, and the center coasts the same, because space never noticed you moved it. Momentum is what space's evenness quietly pays you. Now, one shrug left, and I think you can feel its shape already.
I think I can, from the plain rhythm of the other two. I have waited on it, and that one handed me energy. I have slid it clean sideways, and that one handed me momentum. So the third move has simply got to be, I turn the whole thing. Not slide it, not wait it out. I spin the entire setup bodily around on the spot to face a different wall. Point the whole apparatus north, where a moment ago it was pointing east.
Turn it to face a fresh direction. That's the one, the last of the three. And mind the word whole as carefully here as before. Not spin the ball on its own axis. Turn the entire apparatus, ramp and table and ball, the complete arrangement, rigidly, as a single locked piece, so the whole experiment now faces north, where an instant ago it faced east. Nothing inside it changed. Every part keeps its exact place relative to every other part. Only the facing of the whole is any different.
And it runs the same.
And it runs the same to the last hair. Because no direction anywhere in empty space is the special one either. There is no true north the laws of the world secretly lean toward and prefer.
No favourite direction. So space doesn't merely refuse to have a special place in it, it also flatly refuses to have a special way to face. I could build my ramp aimed at any wall in the room I like, turned round however I please, and physics wouldn't so much as blink an eye at me. It's the identical shrug as the sliding one, only this time it's performed by rotating the thing instead of dragging it.
The identical shrug, done by twisting rather than dragging. And by the pattern you've built, that one has to pay out.
My third treasure. The going around. The spin one. It cannot possibly be anything else.
The going around, that's the one. Angular momentum. And remember what it truly was, once you looked clean past the mere amount of it. An arrow, lying straight up along the spin axis, that simply will not be turned aside for anyone. The skater hauling her arms in tight and whipping herself into a blur to keep that arrow fixed. The tilted planet clutching its aim at the very same far patch of sky, the whole way round its long orbit.
The arrow up the axle. That was the whole heart of the gyroscope night. The leaning top that flatly wouldn't fall over. The bicycle wheel hanging out sideways in the air over nothing at all, because you can't ever push an arrow over, you can only steer it round.
You can only ever steer it. And that holding fixed, the thing you took, all that night, for a private law belonging only to spinning objects, tops and wheels and whirling skaters, is exactly what the world pays you out for its having no special direction to face. Turn the whole world round, the world doesn't care, and out of that not caring falls the going around, held fixed for good.
And I'll bet it's the very thing behind the orbit too, the planet you keep bringing up. It sweeps out those equal patches of space in equal times, the thing you showed me on the orbit night. Fast when it's swooped in close, slow when it's way out. Same sweep always. Is that this? Is that the going around holding?
That's this exactly. The pull holding the planet in has no favoured direction. It's the same reach from the star whichever way the orbit's turned. So turn the whole orbit round and nothing changes, and the going around holds fixed. And a planet with its going around pinned must sweep equal ground in equal time. The two are one fact. The equal patches you watched it carve are that arrow, refusing to change its length. Swing wide and the planet must dawdle. Swoop in close and it must race. The very same going around, spread thin over more sky or bunched tight over less, and forever tallying up to the one unchanged amount.
Then let me say the three of them straight back to you, because they've quietly lined themselves up into a neat little row while you were talking. And I want to hear out loud whether the row actually holds together. When do I run it? Doesn't matter, and out drops energy. Where do I run it? Doesn't matter, and out drops momentum. Which way do I face it? Doesn't matter, and out drops the going around.
When, where, and which way?
When, where, which way? 3 shrugs, 3 treasures, lined up 1 to 1. Every single conserved thing I own is the world declining to care about one of those 3 plain questions. I'll be honest, that's suspiciously tidy for a serious subject. Real subjects are meant to be messier than that.
It is tidier than it has any earthly right to be, and that tidiness, that suspicious neatness, is the whole clue you should be chasing. Wait on it, and time hands you energy. Slide it, and space hands you momentum. Turn it, and space hands you the going around. Every stubborn number we spent the whole season gathering, sitting there in one neat column, and in the very next column over, the one plain simple thing the world can't be bothered to notice you doing to it.
2 columns, married up line by line. A symmetry on the left, its treasure on the right. All right, I'll say it plainly. It's beautiful, and I still don't believe a word of it.
Good. You shouldn't believe it yet. A table that rhymes down the middle isn't a reason for anything. It's a poem. So out with it. Say the objection out loud, and let's have it in the open.
The objection is that you've lined them up so they rhyme, and it's a genuinely lovely rhyme, and it is not a why. Why on earth should the world, being bored of where I'm standing, hand me a specific number that then refuses to change for the whole rest of time? Nowhere in space is special, and this exact quantity holds fixed forever, feel like 2 completely unrelated facts to me. Where's the gear that actually turns the one into the other? Right now it's a coincidence with very good posture.
There is a gear, a real one, and the marvel of it is that you built half the thing yourself last week. Reach back for the flat path.
The flat path. The fan of ghost arcs hanging in the air, and the single one the world reaches in and lights up out of the whole crowd of them.
That very one. We had the score. Motion energy minus place energy, jotted down at every tick and summed the whole way along, one grand number standing in for one entire journey. The action. And the true path, the one the world actually lights, is the one where that sum sits flat. Nudge the path a hair in any direction you like, and the sum doesn't drop and it doesn't climb. And that flatness was never decoration. It's a machine, and it's your missing gear.
Right. Jiggle the route and the price doesn't change. Not to the first tiny bit, I've got that. But last week that same machine handed me back Newton, the whole force law dropping clean out the far end of it. So how does the very same flatness turn nowhere in space is special into this momentum holds dead still? Walk me up onto it one plank at a time, because this is the join I most want to see made.
One plank at a time then, and no skipping. To write the score down at all, you first need numbers that say where everything is. Coordinates, plain address numbers, nothing fancier. Take one of them and let it be the sideways position of your whole setup. How far to the left or the right the entire arrangement is sitting.
One number for where the whole thing's parked.
One number for where the whole thing's parked. Now the sharp question. Does the score actually depend on that number at all? Does motion energy minus place energy come out one bit different when you change where the whole thing sits?
No, that's what we said a moment ago, isn't it? Sliding the whole rigid setup sideways changed nothing whatever, because nothing inside it moved relative to anything else inside it. So the score has to read back the same, whatever value that parking number happens to take. It doesn't care a jot about the address. It only ever notices how things are moving, never where the whole business happens to be sitting.
The score only notices how things are moving. That's the plank the whole rest of it stands on. Say it sharper still. That address number does not appear anywhere in the score at all. The score is stone blind to it. Only how fast that number is changing ever shows its face, the sliding speed, and never once the bare address itself.
And there's a proper name for that, I'd wager, because you've gone and got the naming look on you.
There's a name kept in a drawer for it. A coordinate the score flatly refuses to look at is called cyclic. Hold on to that word. It's the hinge the whole door swings on.
Cyclic, a coordinate the score won't so much as glance at. Now, here's what I'd have guessed falls out of that, and I strongly suspect I've got it backwards. If the score flatly ignores where the thing is, then surely where the thing is never changes. It's pinned in place. The score won't look at its address, so the address gets frozen, nailed down to one spot.
The exact opposite, in fact, and getting that flip clean in your head is the surprise. The address is not pinned down in the slightest. The thing is perfectly free to roam left or right wherever it fancies. What gets pinned, what gets frozen solid, is how it roams.
How it roams, not where it roams. All right, turn the handle for me then. I'm braced for it.
Turn the flat path machine's handle on that one cyclic coordinate, and out of it drops a balance. And the balance says only this: the rate at which a certain partner quantity changes is set entirely, start to finish, by how much the score would shift if you nudged the bare address. That, and precisely nothing else in the world, is what drives the partner.
The rate of change of some partner is set by how much the score shifts when I nudge the address. Fine. And we have this very minute agreed that the score doesn't shift by one single hair when I nudge that address, because it's stone blind to it. So the thing driving my partner's change is
nothing at all. Zero. The score does not move when you nudge that address, so the quantity that's supposed to be driving the partner along has simply nothing in it. And a partner with nothing whatever driving it forward cannot change. It's frozen, the whole motion through, from the first tick to the very last.
And not because anybody forbade it.
Not because anybody forbade it, no. Nobody wrote a rule against it. It's frozen because the machine that grinds out the one true path has left it no possible way to budge. The blindness of the score is the whole and entire cause of the freezing. Symmetry sitting in the score, a frozen quantity dropping out the other end. That's the gear, turning.
Now you slipped a word clean past me twice there. Partner? What partner? For the sideways address of the thing, what's the specific quantity that goes and freezes solid, purely and only because the score won't deign to look at where the thing's sitting?
The partner of a sideways address is the sideways momentum. How fast that address is changing, carried along by the mass of the thing, which is precisely its motion in that direction. That's the marriage the flat path machine always makes, without fail. To every coordinate, it weds the quantity tied to how fast that coordinate is changing.
So each address has its own partner, tied to its own particular speed.
Each and every one. For the two you can slide and turn. Blind the score to the sideways address, and it freezes the sideways momentum. Blind it to the angle you've turned the thing through, and it freezes the going around. but time is the odd one of the three, and I'll not pretend it's the one identical machine. You can't dial how fast the clock runs the way you slide a table sideways, so energy doesn't drop out of that exact same frozen partner gear. What's even in the time case is the rule itself, hour to hour, the score-making recipe reading the same today and next Wednesday. And that evenness still pays out its treasure, energy, by the very same principle, even if the machinery underneath is its own slightly different beast. The same idea, 3 times over, though time, the odd one, plays by its own rule.
Let me try it on the very simplest case there is, the way you always end up making me do, because I don't properly believe a thing until it's survived the empty table. Take a ball with nothing at all pulling on it. No hill, no landscape, a flat, empty nowhere. There's no place energy anywhere, because there's no hill anywhere to hand it any. So the score is only ever the motion energy, all on its own.
Only ever the motion energy, all on its own. And the ball's sideways address
is nowhere in that. The score never once so much as mentions where the ball is sitting. So the address is cyclic, and by your machine, that has to freeze the ball's momentum. Its motion can't change, same speed, same heading, on and on forever, because there's simply no way left for it to budge. Which is, oh, that's the first law. That's the very first thing you ever taught me, the very first night.
The very first thing walked back in through a side door.
A thing left entirely alone glides straight and steady, and never once changes its pace. That isn't a separate law at all, is it? That is momentum being frozen, purely because empty space hasn't got a special spot anywhere in it. And I said the whole of it just now without once uttering the word force.
Without once uttering force. The oldest rule in the entire subject, that straight, steady glide, is nothing but space's evenness paying out its frozen momentum. And last week you watched that same free ball fall out of the flat path as a dead straight line. Same ball, same emptiness, same machine grinding away. Symmetry hands you the conserved quantity. The conserved quantity is the plane motion you'd already have sworn to on the first night. 3 separate doors and 1 single room behind all of them.
So it isn't a coincidence with good posture after all. It's the same idea, run 3 separate times over, though time's the odd one, playing by its own rule. The score forgets where you are, and the flat path freezes your momentum. It forgets which way you're facing, and it freezes your going around. And it reads back the same hour to hour. And that hands you energy just the same, by the very same principle. The conservation isn't stapled on from the outside by some higher authority handing down laws. It drops straight out of last week's own flat path rule, the very instant the world stops caring when or where or which way you run it.
Straight out of it, with no magic smuggled in anywhere. No fresh law handed down from on high. A smooth way to move the world that leaves the score unchanged, married for life to a quantity that then never changes. That's the theorem in its simplest room. At the level of 1 honest gear, you can stand there and watch turn with your own eyes.
And I'll guard one thing all by myself here, because I can feel it wanting to go wrong on me. It's the score that has to be blind, isn't it? The rule. Not my ball being some pretty symmetric shape.
The score, the rule, the physics itself, never once the object. Good instinct to fence that off before it bites you.
So it's not that my ball is a nice round, even marble, the same all the way around it. It's that the score, the motion energy minus the place energy, the law the whole motion has to obey, reads back the same after I slide the setup. The evenness lives in the law, in the machine that grinds the path out, not in how tidy the thing being moved happens to look.
The evenness is in the law, not in the look of it, and hold those two apart with both hands because they dearly love to smear together. A lopsided, ugly, off-balance lump of a thing obeys the very same even-handed rules at every spot in empty space, so it hands you conserved momentum, precisely the same as a flawless, polished sphere would. The symmetry that pays out is the sameness of the physics under the move. Never once any prettiness in the object being shoved.
Then I think my flag is in serious trouble, and I want to say out loud exactly what's happening to it, because it's the order of things that's coming undone under me. All season it went like this. I'd do experiments, I'd watch energy hold, watch momentum hold, watch the going around hold, and I'd call each one a law and stand my whole weight on it. The holding still was the ground floor of the house.
And now?
And now you've quietly gone and shown me there's a whole room down underneath the ground floor.
There's a room underneath it, and the symmetries are what live down there in it. We used to go and find a conserved quantity out in the lab, catch it holding still, night after night after night, and then shrug at why the world ever troubled itself to keep it, and file the thing away as a brute fact, a law that simply is and begs nobody's leave to be so.
And now you turn the whole picture clean over.
Turn it clean over, top to bottom. The conservation was never the bottom of anything at all. Underneath each one of them sits a symmetry, the world's plain, flat refusal to care when, or where, or which way you point it. And the conserved quantity is only its shadow, thrown up here onto the wall where we happen to be standing and watching.
Oh, that turns the entire thing on its head, front clean to back. I had it backwards the whole season, start to finish. I thought the conserved quantities were the deep bedrock truth of the place, and the symmetries were a tidy little pattern sitting up on top of them, mere decoration. And it's the reverse. It's flat upside down. The symmetries are the deep truth, down in the basement, and the treasures are the pattern sitting up top, the bookkeeping, the receipts, the shadows thrown across the wall.
The shrug was the substance. So there goes your flag. The conservation laws are the bedrock. They aren't the bedrock, they're what the bedrock casts. The symmetries are the floor the whole place is standing on, and energy and momentum and the going around are the three long shadows those symmetries throw out into the world, right where a patient soul with a stopwatch can finally catch them holding still and mistake them forgivably for the thing itself.
Now, wait just one solid minute, because I find I'm genuinely put out about this. I leaned on these things. All season long, energy was the very first treasure you ever pressed into my hands. I trusted it. I built things on it. I explained it to people at dinner with a perfectly straight face. Momentum, the going around. I stood my entire weight on all three of them, like they were the three great pillars holding up the roof over my head.
And
you're now telling me that the entire time, every last one of the three was getting its authority second-hand? Borrowed off some shrug down in a basement I never even once met? I feel like I've spent a whole season quoting a landlord at length with real confidence, who turns out to be renting the place himself.
renting off the symmetries, every one of the three of them, and paying the rent in full, mind you. They do honest work up here in the light. They keep the books faithfully through every crash and every orbit, and everything you ever built on them still stands right where you left it standing. Nothing you trusted was false, not one brick of it.
Only the authority was borrowed then, but a real weight rested on it the whole time, and it held. That's going to itch for a good long while. So the honest picture is this. Don't hand me a conserved quantity and ask me to stand about admiring it. Hand me a symmetry, a way the world stays the same after you've moved it, and the treasure comes tumbling out the far end, whether anybody wanted it there or not.
The symmetry is the thing you'd actually go and build a whole world on. The treasure is only ever what drops into the tray at the bottom.
Build a world on the shrug. And I take it that's not merely a nice turn of phrase you're spinning me. That's a thing that somebody actually went and did.
That's near enough word for word what the people who build worlds do now, every day. Which is the very point where tonight stops being about your firework and your skater on the ice and starts being about very nearly everything that's been found since.
Go on then. How does believing the shrug is the deep thing actually change how a person would even go about doing physics?
It flips the whole procedure back to front. Once you truly believe the symmetry is the deep thing and the conservation is only ever its shadow, you stop wandering about the lab, hoping to trip over a conserved quantity by luck. You start guessing symmetries on purpose, deliberately, and reading straight off them what the world is then forced to keep.
Guessing them on purpose. So instead of the old plod, watch the world. Notice something happens to hold still, give it a name, call it a law. You flip the whole thing around. You sit down at the desk first, before anything, and say, suppose the world had this one particular sameness baked into it, this shrug that nobody's thought to check for yet. And then the theorem hands you, for nothing, the exact quantity that would simply have to hold fixed if your guess turned out right.
For nothing, and before you've run one single experiment. Guess the symmetry, turn the handle, and out comes a quantity the world would then owe you. A thing that ought to sit there holding dead still, if the guess is any good at all. And then off you go, out into the world, hunting to see whether it actually does.
And that genuinely works? That's not just a tidy way of bookkeeping something you already knew perfectly well.
It's how the very deepest laws got themselves found, again and again and again. New forces, whole new families of particles nobody had ever laid eyes on. The move, over and over, was to first suppose a symmetry, read off the conserved quantity it flatly demands, and then go and check whether the world actually pays out on it. Guess the shrug, work out the treasure it owes you, then go looking the world over for the treasure. It sounds backwards, naming the answer before you've asked the world a single thing. But the theorem keeps the guess honest because it pins down what a right guess would have to buy you.
Give me one I might half recognize then. Something that sits there in the plain world, holding stubbornly still, that everyone treats as its own standalone law, but that turned out, underneath it all, to be one of these shrugs in a disguise. The same as my 3.
Electric charge. You already know the one. It never changes. The total charge sealed up inside a closed-off room is fixed. You can shuffle it about all you like, move it from here to over there, but you can never make or destroy the net amount of it, not by a whisker.
And that looks for all the world like just another brute, standalone law, handed down for no reason at all.
It looks exactly like one. And it isn't. It's the shadow of a symmetry too. A subtler one, mind. Not a slide or a turn you could act out with your 2 hands in a room, but a quiet sameness, woven right down into the very description of things. I'll not go unwrapping the whole of it tonight, but it pays out charge in the very identical way that yours pay out their treasures. And that's the whole shape of the modern picture, near enough. A short list of these deep samenesses down in the floor, and the entire cabinet of conserved things standing up on top of them as their shadows.
So it's not just my 3 shrugs and 3 treasures, and then we're done for the evening. It's the master pattern, standing behind the whole cabinet of them. Every stubborn, never-shifting number anywhere in the whole of physics, my 3 and charge, and presumably a great pile of others I've never once heard the names of. Every one is the world being even-handed about something, and paying you back for it with a quantity that holds.
Standing underneath an enormous amount of it. But let me take up your reins a moment here, because you're about to gallop clean past what I can honestly promise you. What the theorem hands over cleanly runs the one direction. Give it a smooth symmetry of the score, and it gives you back a conserved quantity. A Noether charge is the name they carry. Turning it the whole way about, swearing blind that every conserved thing you'll ever meet is secretly one of these symmetries, that wants far more care than a single night can hold. Take the arrow that flies clean. Symmetry in, conserved quantity out.
Fair enough. Symmetry in, conserved quantity out, and I'll not go shoving the arrow backwards and claiming more than you actually sold me at the counter. But even the one clean direction is plenty to have rearranged all the furniture in my head. So, who worked all this out? A thing that folds the whole subject in half like that has the definite feel of something with a name attached to it, and a story sitting behind the name.
It has a name attached, and the theorem simply carries it forward. Noether. Emmy Noether, who proved it around 1918 at Göttingen.
And it came out of clear blue nowhere. Somebody sat down of a Tuesday and folded the whole of mechanics neatly in half.
It came out of a headache, in fact. Einstein's headache. His new theory of gravity, with space and time themselves able to bend and stretch and flex, had thrown up a real and genuinely thorny confusion about what energy even meant anymore, and whether it was still conserved at all when the very stage underneath it could bend. She was brought in on the trouble, and in the course of settling it, she uncovered this entire bridge. Every last symmetry married clean to its conserved quantity.
So it came straight out of the mess at the very frontier of the subject. Somebody handed her a nasty puzzle about energy in Einstein's gravity, and she reached down into it and pulled this whole clean general law up out of the tangle. The one thing that reorganizes the entire subject from the floor up, and it began its life as a piece of housekeeping in somebody else's theory.
A fair way to put it. Finding the floor of physics, as it happened, while she was down there sweeping somebody else's floor.
That's a good origin for a deep idea, and I'm going to guess the work didn't get her anything close to what it plainly should have.
It didn't. She did the work, for years, without the post or the pay it plainly warranted. The university of the day resisted giving a woman any proper place on its faculty at all. So she taught and worked out at the ragged edge of the thing, lecturing for a good stretch under a colleague's name, unranked, unpaid for the labour of it. And later, when the Nazis took power, she was forced out of Germany altogether for being Jewish, and went on with the work abroad instead.
And the theorem itself?
The theorem has stood, untouched, through the entire whole of it.
Stood untouched, while the person who found it got shoved from pillar to post the whole way. There's something bracing in the plain flat shape of that, the idea holding while the one who found it got pushed about. I'll not stand here and make a great speech of it, you'd only wince at me. But I'll hold the plain fact and hold it steady. One of the deep tidy-ups in mechanics has her name stamped across it, and she had to fight for the very room she did it in.
Hold the plain fact. It carries its own weight, and it doesn't want any decorating from us. Now, before you go walking out that door, believing this theorem quietly eats the entire world for breakfast, let me fence it properly, because a tool this sharp gets itself misused the very moment a person loves it a touch too much.
Fence me in then. Go on. Where does the shrug stop paying out? Where's the actual edge of the thing?
There are two places people reach further with it than it'll honestly go, and I want you carrying both fences home with you tonight. First one, it only ever works for smooth moves. Every symmetry we've used tonight you could do by a hair. Slide the world a whisker to the left, or a whisker further than that. Turn it a sliver, or a sliver more. Wait a heartbeat, or a heartbeat longer. Smooth, continuous, dialable by any tiny amount at all, however small. Those are the ones that pay out treasure.
And the ones that aren't smooth like that?
A jump symmetry. A mirror flip, say, swapping left for right in one clean instant snap, with no halfway house of any kind in between, does not hand you a conserved quantity by this theorem. There's simply no dialing it a little bit. And the machine, the whole gear of it, needs the little bit to grab onto.
So the mirror gets stiffed entirely. A world that looks the same reflected in a mirror, left and right built perfectly even, so that the flipped world is honestly indistinguishable from ours. That's a real sameness, plain as day, as legitimate a symmetry as any slide or any turn you've shown me. And it pays out precisely nothing. not one single bent penny of treasure for the courtesy of being reflectable.
It's choosy, not unfair. And the mirror still does honest work in the world, mind, only a different job than paying. It tells you which happenings are allowed to occur and which are quietly forbidden from ever happening. It polices the world rather than paying into it. But it hands you no number that holds fixed as the clock runs on, because there's no smooth dial anywhere on it for the machine to take a grip of. The payout is reserved strictly for the shrugs you can perform by degrees. The all or nothing ones need not apply at the window.
By degrees, or nothing. All right, one fence up and standing. You said there were two, and you said the second one bites.
The second one bites the treasure you trust the very most of all, energy. Everything we did tonight leaned its whole weight square on the world, looking the same at every hour, forever, without a single exception. But take the entire universe as your experiment now, stretched across truly enormous reaches of time, and that quietly stops being true. The universe is expanding, the whole of space is slowly stretching as time runs on, so it does not look the same today as it did in the deep, deep past. Time is not even out there at the very largest scale of things.
And the instant that evenness breaks,
the payout breaks right along with it. Energy is not, as a plain matter of fact, globally conserved across the expanding cosmos.
Now that is a bridge too far, surely. You've overreached your own theorem this time. Energy not conserved. That is the very first treasure you ever gave me. The one I've leaned on the hardest of all season long. You cannot simply take it back off me in the last 20 minutes of the entire course. Everything I have ever once watched holds its energy without fail. Balls, pendulums, fireworks, the whole lot of them. Where in the world would energy even go to not be conserved?
In your room, across your one evening, it holds absolutely flawlessly. Time's even enough here, on this scale, that the payout comes out exact, and you can lean your whole weight on it without the faintest tremor. It's only out at the scale of the whole stretching cosmos that the evenness quietly gives way. And there's a fingerprint of it you can very nearly picture. Light setting out across the universe and travelling for ages arrives at the far end reddened, stretched out to a longer, lazier wave than it left home with, its energy lowered along the way, with no pocket anywhere that it went into. I'll not derive it tonight. Take it as an honest edge, not a hole.
Ah, that's almost worse than reassuring, and I do mean that as the very highest compliment. Because it's exactly consistent, isn't it? It's the theorem being true, not the theorem breaking. If energy is only ever the shadow of time being even, then go and break time's evenness, out there at the far edge of everything. And of course the shadow has to go and break right along with it. The law fails at precisely the one spot its symmetry fails. You didn't punch a hole in the thing at all. The thing turned round and told you where its own edge lies.
The theorem drew its own edge, and that's the mark of a real law over a slogan. It shows you where and why it stops holding. One idea explaining both the holding and the failing in a single breath.
That's a rare thing for a law to do for a person. Turn round and point out its own fence. All right, I know this next part of the ritual off by heart by now. You've gone quiet in that one particular way you go quiet, and there's a door somewhere behind you in the dark, and you're winding up to fling it open and stride off through it and leave me standing here squinting after you into the black again. So, out with it. Where are we going next time?
There's a door, and it opens onto a strange and genuinely lovely room. We've now got two whole ways to do the very same mechanics. Grind the crank forward tick by tick, or hunt the flat path across the whole journey at once. There's a third, a twin picture of the entire thing, and in it, the complete state of a moving object. Everything true about it all at once, where it is and how it's moving, both folded together, shrinks right down to a single point. And every single point in that room is one whole possible motion. and the future is a flow through the room, a current. You watch the whole world by watching one point drift downstream.
The whole state of a thing, one lone point. So the ball is no longer a ball at all. It's a dot sitting somewhere in this room, and where the dot sits tells you the whole of everything there is to know. The where and the how fast, both folded into the one position. And time is nothing but the dot drifting along its way. And I would bet these three treasures of mine do something particular in that room, don't they? Or you'd never have got the look on.
They do. And that's the sly reason I'm sending you in there in the first place. A conserved quantity, in that flowing room, is a fence the current is simply not allowed to cross. Hold energy fixed, and every drifting dot is trapped onto a single surface, never once permitted to wander off it. Each treasure pens the whole river into its own banks. So the very things we caught holding still tonight turn out to be the walls that carve and shape the entire flow. Every symmetry you hand me down there carves one more bank, and the river of every possible future has to run between them. The shadows become the riverbanks. But that is next time, not tonight.
Then let me gather the whole night up into my arms before you go opening any more doors on me, because something's rearranged itself right the way through me, and I want to see whether I can hold it in one single piece. For a whole season, I went about collecting treasures, and I took the three of them for the foundation stones of the place. And tonight, you walked me one floor down beneath them, where underneath every treasure sits a shrug, the world not caring when I run it, or where I set it down, or which way I turn it to face. Each shrug, fed through last week's flat path machine, pays out one treasure that then holds fixed.
Held whole and held right. The symmetries down in the floor, the conserved quantities up here in the light, and last week's flat path, the one single gear that turns the one into the other. One mathematician's bridge thrown across the middle of the subject and still standing. Now, you know the ritual by now. You get the last word at the door. Hand me the image. What is it you're carrying out of this room?
The shrug. That great flat indifference of the whole wide world, that I can drag my entire laboratory 10 steps to the left, or heave it bodily round to face a different wall, or run the whole thing today or a week from Wednesday, and the universe will not so much as glance up from its paper at me. That's the one I'm keeping, because for a whole season I thought the miracle was in the treasures, that it was some deep private magic that energy holds, that momentum holds, that the going around holds through everything. And tonight you showed me the miracle was never once in the treasures at all. It was down in the shrug underneath them, quietly paying every single one of them out. So the next time I watch something hold, a coasting center, a whirling skater, a level line that simply will not move, I'm not going to marvel that the number stays fixed. I'm going to ask the better question, the one you handed me tonight. Not why does this quantity never change, but what is the world too even-handed to notice I've done, that it's paying me back in a thing that holds?